It's now my distinct pleasure to introduce this morning's opening keynote speaker, Tony Chapman. Tony has been inducted into 3 prestigious halls of fame, one celebrating his relentless advocacy for small businesses in Canada, and 2 recognizing his trailblazing career, founding and building 2 internationally acclaimed communications agencies and a pioneering research firm. Today, Tony continues to shape industries as a sought-after speaker and moderator at global conferences. He's the host of the award-winning podcast, ChatterThatMatters, and co-founder of Chatter AI, a cutting-edge firm blending advanced AI with human imagination to craft content that truly resonates. Please welcome Tony Chapman.
Good morning, everybody. I have to tell you, I woke up this morning with imposter syndrome roaring through my veins. Whoa. It's good timing on roaring. You know, I look and think about this audience that's here. You know, I'm not a PhD. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a CEO. The people that will be gracing this panel in a moment, I didn't reinvent real estate, communications. I didn't negotiate massive trade deals. What I've done over my life is just be an entrepreneur. And my world was always about storytelling, finding a way to connect sellers and buyers and brands and consumers. I was so blessed to be part of so many ways of change. When I started, our medium of choice was slides and slide projectors. And we put a bank of them together like a flip book to create this sense of movement. Then on my watch, we saw computer graphics come along, and lasers and holograms and video. And then we saw the internet show up in email and social media. And more recently, podcasting. And in the last couple of months, we've been playing with AI and what that's going to do to revolutionize the way we share stories. But what I'm really blessed about, and probably why I'm here today, why you're all here, is I'm in the top 0.5% of everybody in this world. Top 0.5%. And why? Because I'm Canadian. And I'm so lucky because I would never have built my career if I hadn't been part of Canada. And my pride in Canada began in 1967. I was a young boy. And we're about to celebrate Canada's 100th birthday. And what a year that was. We had a caravan come through town, and on the same tracks that unified our nation, we brought this centennial train. I remember going in as a kid and for the first time realizing our history, what we had to do to become the Canada we were. And I was born in Montreal, and I was right in the epicenter of Expo 67. We'd built 3 man-made islands. We had this thing called the Metro that tunneled under the St. Lawrence as a subway system, a monorail. Every country did their best to show off where they were heading in the future. But the country that put its best foot forward was Canada. Our provinces, our companies in Canada, we absolutely said to the world, we're a country. Pearson was the Prime Minister, and for 2 years we'd been flying this flag, this maple leaf. We're no longer attached to Britain. We weren't part of the United States. We were Canada. And I wondered if this was just the rose-colored glasses of a 10-year-old dreaming about what Canada was. But when you go back in time, in 1967, we had one of the top economies in the world. We're only 20 million people. We had one of the highest per capita incomes. We had a growing middle class. The Canadian dream was within arm's reach of desire. Immigrants that would come in this country could do whatever they wanted to do because the circumstances existed. Infrastructure, we built the Trans-Canada Highway in 12 years. The St. Lawrence Seaway in 5 years. And our social conscience? We said to the world, by the way, on our watch, and in the 60s, we introduced universal health care, the Canadian pension plan, and unemployment insurance. We set up the conditions for such extraordinary success, and it just didn't end in 67. I mean, this little country of 20 million people created BlackBerry and Nortel, Couche-Tard and Cirque du Soleil, and so many other major innovations in healthcare and the sciences and technology. We had some of the best universities in the world. And I ask you today, what's happened? You know, I drove in from the beaches today along the lakeshore, and I saw a city of tents. These are people that weeks ago, months ago, a year ago, walked into a door and could lock it at night. And they're living in a tent, sometimes with their kids, in open sanitation. Our food banks are overrun. Our shelters are overrun. We're dealing with a healthcare crisis, a mental health crisis. If you want to look at the math, if you think this is rhetoric, our productivity has been in a free fall. Our standard of living, 67, we're among the top in the world. We're now lower than Alabama, the fourth poorest state in the United States. We're sitting with $1.5 trillion in debt. Every year we walk in and we're saying to our next generation, the generation after that, the first $80 billion in growing that you spend every year is to service the debt that we took on our watch. I think it's time we got to change the story. And I don't believe it's about voting somebody out and voting somebody in. I think that's just lazy. We think that that seems to be the responsibility of one person or a party. I think it falls on our shoulders. And I think that we've got to realize that the root of all of what we've got to do going forward is to change the voter literacy in our country. We got to give them financial literacy. Because as a country, we've become very lazy at voting for the free prize inside. It's the cereal box, the decoder ring on the box of honeycomb. What's in it for me in this ballot? How can you bribe for my vote? So the first thing we got to think about is our financial and voter literacy. They've got to take our debt personally. They've got to understand that our tax dollars and borrowed dollars have got to be spent properly. Second thing, if as a storyteller and I look at Canada, I see all these castles. Oh, there's the private sector castle. Oh, there's the public sector castle. There's academia over there. There's the unions. Everybody has this castle, this big moat. The middle ground's disappeared, and the drawbridge comes down to say, how can I get my piece of a shrinking pie? What can I do to make sure I protect my status quo and the way we do things? And I think as a country, we have to come together and invite people back to the middle ground, where this country was built, where there's consensus and collaboration, where we're unified, and say, what can we do different? Now, I'm not a policymaker. I haven't got that ability to play three-dimensional chess, but as a storyteller and a marketer, I say, cannot Canada, with only 40 million people, can we not be better at delivering on the unmet needs of our planet? Can we not create such great purpose and prosperity that we change the narrative from negativity and this growing sense of impossibility to positivity and possibility? Can we not be a superpower in food? The insecurity of food around the planet is pervasive. We have farmable land. Can we not take from seed to commodity to creativity and offer the world grown and sown in Canada with our fresh air and our fresh water and the way we treat and respect our soil? Content. When I hear words like defund the CBC, I just think of such toxic negativity. Why don't we change the narrative of what we're doing with that money and invest in Canadian content? We have the top comedians, songwriters, storytellers, scriptwriters in the world. We punch way above our weight class. But the world's moved from television to streaming. Why aren't we populating those streaming services around the world with Canadian content? Why aren't we drawing on the diversity of our country to create scripts and narrative that have people binge watch the shows? And why don't we encourage some of that content to also feature the beauty of Canada? Because not only will we attract eyeballs, but tourism. And if you think that idea is mad, think of what Game of Thrones did to New Zealand's tourism economy. Think of what Croatia has benefited. The power of what we could do as an organization. Small business. How many made in Canada businesses do we let leave this country because their conditions for success aren't there? Because we're putting barriers in front of them instead of capitalizing and encouraging. Why aren't we a petri dish for the world where the very best and brightest come here because they know in Canada we can give them first mover advantage? Longevity in healthcare. I'm hosting a conference in Calgary in a couple of months, and what we can do with longevity. Everybody in the world is chasing the fountain of youth one way or another. Very few people, I would say, anybody want it up in an old folk song? No, but we can change that, and Canada can populate. It doesn't take scale, it doesn't take shipping lanes, it takes the cloud and our ingenuity. But I think we all have to come to the middle. I think we got to take ideology out of education and start focusing on ideas. We got to make the next generation the hero of our story. We got to prepare them to compete in a world where jobs are populated in the clouds and AI is going to be populating every corner of our marketplace. We got to find a way to do things different. And I think to do so, it relies on all of us in this room. We have to realize that only by being the middle ground can we absolutely get this country back on course to where it was in 1967. And I want to conclude with a simple story that kind of parallels where we are as a country. It happened in the late 1930s. There was this lowly backbencher, British Parliament. His name was Winston Churchill. He'd messed up a big battle in World War I, so he was a little out of favor. Even his own party thought he was a bit of a boorish loudmouth. He had the audacity to write articles for American magazines, which it just didn't do in the House of Lords. But Churchill was a visionary. He looked around and he saw what was happening in this world. He saw the brown shirts moving in Germany, the fascism in Italy, communism, Japan's search for new resources, America becoming the new superpower. But the Prime Minister of the day just wanted to hang on to the status quo, believed that things would get better. One day Winston Churchill stood up and he waited till everybody's eyes were on him. And he said, "This honorable Prime Minister is wrong in these matters. I know it is so because I and the people of England will write our history." From that moment forward, people started to listen to Churchill. And they understood that his stories were about a higher purpose and a compass in terms of what was possible. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time we write our history. Thank you.